Do you want to be a tree in Dragonflight and grow leaves and fruit and nurture everybody in your group and your raid? Well, Resto Druid could be the spec for you, and we are looking at the recent changes. Well, recent, not more recent, but also talking about the tier set for Resto Druid in Dragonflight with everything that we know up to this day. That changed for the spec that we love, because I love Resto Druid. It's a tree. Who doesn't love a tree? And if you like this type of content and everything else that we do, you know, with the TLFs and the podcasts and the main series and the on cooldown pieces that we haven't done in a while, but we will get to as well, plus the streams, then consider becoming a Patreon. Our Patreon platform directly supports our content in every possible way. It actually really does make all of this possible, and for us to do this for a living on a daily basis and give you guys the cool videos. Not to mention that if you do decide to become a Patreon, there are a couple of tiers that you can check. Who knows, maybe there's something there for you. You never know until you check it, right? Plus, there are a bunch of like rewards for each tier depending on what exactly you want. And you would be a part of the Patreon community where we actually discuss with you guys directly, have feedback about our content, ask for opinions and stuff like that. So you'd be more directly involved in our creative process. Becoming a Patreon does indeed support the channel, and if you decide to do it, we would be super grateful for it. Thank you very much. Resto Druid time. Woo! Alright, we have discussed recently Feral Druid, so in terms of the general talent tree, plus I think we covered this in the Boomy video as well, since it hasn't changed much. There's not, like I said, there's not much changed in the general talent tree. The only change that we kind of keep talking about every time is Protector of the Pack, which is the prior, let's say, Furor talent that was changed. For Restoration Druid, it kind of has like a different effect. So for Restoration Druid, it stores 10% of your effective healing up to a certain amount, and your next Moonfire consumes all stored healing to increase its damage dealt. It definitely tries to flip the switch or flip the script on what this does, because for every other spec it does healing. Now for Resto Druid it does damage, so you can essentially feel like the hybrid that you were meant to be. And of course you still have stuff like Nature's Vigil, which are still there, all single target healing spells, also damage a nearby enemy target for 20% of the healing done. So you can essentially turn your healing into DPS as a cooldown every now and again, which might be a better way to deal damage, or you can simply just do the damage that you were meant to do. And all of this can be, of course, buffed by the talent Nurturing Instinct, which is a 3-pointer magical damage and healing increased by 2% per point. So that would be all the way up to 6%. You might want to take this if you take any of the capstones. It is a little bit awkward, and to be fair, the Druid talent tree is one of the most annoying general talent trees to path towards, because it's so restrictive. If you go down a path, likely it is that you will have to stay on that path until the very end, or branch out way earlier if you want to spread out and get like multiple capstones or things like that. But then again, that maybe makes the Druid a beauty of a spec, or the Resto Druid in this case a beauty of a spec for you to build and make that perfect tree that you always wanted to ever since you were a little kid. Now, for the actual spec talents, we didn't really get too many changes. The tree is already very good at what it does, and with some good tunings, we probably are looking like one of the best healers in Dragonflight, at least thematically anyway. First of all, Nature's Splendor got a 15% nerf to the bonus healing it provided, because it was pretty beefy. It's Nature's Splendor is essentially the upgrade to Nature's Swiftness, which is a choice node, making the healing bonus to regrowth from Nature's Swiftness increased. Now, it was actually doing some fat regrowth, so this is probably just in tuning to keep things in balance. We're probably gonna see this type of stuff more later on. And speaking of, Abundance got lowered to 5%, down from 6%. Small nerfs, nothing too crazy. And following down the right path from Iron Bark, the choice node of Stone Bark and improved Iron Bark have come closer to it instead of, you know, Cultivation. A little bit more accessible, they make a little bit more sense, you know how it is. Same goes for Regenerative Hardwood. It came closer up towards the talent tree, closer to the Bark's buffers, and in its old place came a nerfed version of Nurturing Dormancy that it has its duration kind of divided by 3. So instead of like 3 to totally 9 seconds, it's 1 to 3 total seconds. And we talked about this, I think, in the last Resto Druid tree, where it meant that you would probably have some really overpowered rejuvenations, although the rejuvenation is probably still very strong. Power of the Archdruid. One of the capstone choices was a little nerf to the application of rejuvenation or regrowth to 2 additional allies instead of 3, but the other choice node, which is Invigorate, was changed to refresh the duration of your active life bloom and rejuvenation on a target and make them complete 200% faster, and is on a 20-second cooldown, down from 45 seconds. So that's kind of cool, you know, nerfs and tuning here and there. Waking Dream on the far left side got a buff from 5% to 8% per active rejuvenation, and Cultivation has ended up on the left side close to the middle-ish, kind of, and seems to make a little more sense in its positioning to be on the side with all the other rejuvenation buffs. So the forest as well got a little nerf to wild growth from 75% down to 60%, and rampant growth has been moved under Soul the Forest, and in its place came Circle of Life and Death, you know, the Shadowlands legendary that all of the Druid specs, I think Bear has it as well, and further, it in the Cycle's place was moved Budding Leaves. And Budding Leaves is one of the newer talents that we talked about last time. If you haven't seen the video, what it does is Life's Bloom healing is increased by 3% each time it heals, up to a total of 45%. Also increases Life Bloom Final Bloom by 7%. This leads me to believe that the functionality of this hot will maintain and scale up the more you refresh it. So long as it doesn't drop, it will retain that 45%, I think, although that might be a little bit too strong, so who knows. And that's for 1 point. You can put 2 points in and make it stronger. And from Budding Leaves, you now have 3 capstone out of the total 5 that you can get if you do decide to go this route. And you have Photosynthesis to the left, which is the mechanic that we've known for a while. Your Life Bloom, when it's on yourself, your periodic heals are 20% faster. And if Life Bloom is on an ally, your periodic heals on them have a 4% chance to cause it to bloom, which, you know, makes sense, especially if you took the extra bloom healing from Budding Leaves. Undergrowth is on the middle side. You may Life Bloom 2 targets at once, but Life Bloom's healing is reduced by 10%. And you have Germination. You can apply Rejuvenation twice to the same target. Rejuvenation's duration is increased by 2 total seconds, which obviously goes really well with all the other rejuvenation buffers. Cenarian's Guidance has been moved and is right under the choice node of Convoke and Incarnation, which is an upgrade to the said one, just above Germination rather. So what Cenarian Guidance does is, every Druid spec kind of has this. If you picked Incarnation, it buffs the Tree of Life, and you gain clear casting every 6 seconds. The cooldown of Tree is reduced by 1.5 seconds when Life Bloom blooms, which, you know, works well with all the bloomies. And 1 second when Regrowth's initial heal critically strikes. And if you pick Convoked, then Convoke the Spirit's cooldown is reduced by 50%, and its duration and number of spells is reduced by 25%. And Convoke the Spirits has an increased chance to use an exceptional spell. So basically the Covenant legendaries for Night Fae, probably a little bit better. And it actually is cool in what it does to the Tree of Life. Since Tree of Life is a pretty cool cooldown, you can be the fat tree that you always wanted to be. And to be fair, this is one of the coolest healer animated cooldown ever. You look like a crazy tree that just heals everybody, and that's pretty cool. And the fact that you can get this better is a cool mechanic that we players essentially always love when they added it to WoW, getting your big fat cooldown way quicker. And where Germination was, you now have Embrace of the Dream, a 2-pointer talent that makes wild growth have a 50%, 100% chance to momentarily shift your mind into the Emerald Dream, instantly healing all allies affected by a rejuvenation for 75% of your spell power. So, and it also unlocks, you know, the other capstone as well, which is kind of nice. It's central. This is something that, in terms of positioning, this is not something that we've seen on a lot of other specs, where from here you can path to other capstones, and in the middle there's like no capstone, you just go to the sides. And to be fair, it's all really cool. In my opinion, Restoration Druid's talent looks to be some of the best. As far as the tier set is concerned for Resto Druid, the 2-piece makes Rejuvenation, Life Bloom, Wild Growth, Efflorescence, and Tranquility chance to critically heal increase by 10%. Obviously, this is probably more relevant to Regrowth, but conveniently, Regrowth has been left out of this because Regrowth has a need mechanic with its critically heal. But the 4-piece makes Efflorescence critically heal, increase the healing of your next Wild Growth by 10%, stacking up to 5 times. Life Bloom critically heal reduces the cooldown of Nature Swiftness by 2 seconds. And a clarification for the Forset bonus, Wild Growth Power proc can only proc once from each tick of Efflorescence, and increases to Wild Growth healing change to 5% per stack and was 10%. So it's kind of nerfed to kind of get it aligned with everything else. And this is kind of it. Restoration Druid seems to be one of the coolest healers, obviously, and it kind of was always pretty cool, but with the talent tree, it feels like you can actually expand on all the healing buttons, since as far as the healer is concerned, it felt like for the longest time Restoration Druids rather, got the least amount out of the talents in terms of actual resto things, because you have Druids with all the druidy things, you had utility, you had shapeshifting stuff, and by the end you eventually got some resto healing stuff. But with this talent tree, feels like you have so many cool toys to make all of your abilities super cool, and the tier set is looking kick-ass as opposed to some other healer tier set. And you might not want to particularly talent into anything specific, but it is clear that the tier set would at least reward you if you have a lot more crit, which is something that we see across the board for a lot, if not all of the specs so far. What do you think? Is Restoration Druid gonna still be your main? Is it gonna be your new main? Is it gonna be your alt? What is it? Because I personally feel like it's probably going to be part of my main, or my, let's say, my second healer that I want to play, because it's looking really cool. Thank you for watching the video. Thank you, Patrons, for supporting the channel, and we will see you in the next one. Love y'all. Peace. Bye bye.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.